So, imagine this for a moment. You're Dolly Parton. You've just written a song, one that will go on to become one of the most legendary tracks in music history. That song is Jolene. It's been sung, covered, reimagined by artists from every corner of the world. And it's still as powerful today as it was the moment it came out. But here's the wild part, that song. It wasn't just a piece of fiction. It wasn't some creative daydream spun into a melody. No, Jolene was based on a real woman. A real, breathing person. And years later, decades even, Dolly ran into her again. And what did she say? Well, in the most classic Dolly way ever, she quipped, "She didn't look half as good as I thought she would by now." Now let's pause right there. Because how often does something like that happen? Most of us write songs in our heads about people who annoyed us at the coffee shop or cut us off in traffic. But Dolly? She made an anthem. A soulful, pleading, unforgettable ballad. About a bank teller. Yeah, that's right. Let's rewind the clock to the early 1970s. Dolly had just married Carl Dean, her now longtime husband. And there was this woman working at the bank Carl went to. She had red hair, a magnetic personality, and apparently, a bit of a flirtatious vibe. The kind that makes you raise an eyebrow and go, okay, who's that? Every time Carl went to the bank, this woman would chat him up. She wasn't being inappropriate, per se. But you know how sometimes people just go a little over the line. Not rude. Not disrespectful. But just, suspiciously friendly. That was her. And Dolly noticed. Now, many people would get upset. They might have a confrontation. A dramatic phone call. A jealous meltdown. But Dolly? She did something most of us would never think to do. She wrote a song. A hit song. She took all those swirling emotions, jealousy, insecurity, protectiveness, and poured them into her lyrics. And that's how Jolene was born. It wasn't just a random character. It was a real woman. Real emotions. Real stakes. You can feel it when you hear the song, right? The way she sings, "Please don't take him just because you can." There's no hate in it. Just raw honesty. She's basically saying, I know you could take him. But I'm begging you not to. And that kind of vulnerability? That takes guts. Now let's fast forward. Because here's where the story takes a twist. Years later, after the fame, the awards, the legacy, Dolly actually sees this woman again. Yes, the real Jolene. You'd think it'd be this intense, dramatic moment, right? Like a movie scene. But no. Dolly just looks at her and says, with a half smile, "She didn't look half as good as I thought she would by now." Now depending on your tone, that could sound super shady. But coming from Dolly, it's more cheeky than mean. It's like your grandma throwing shade while knitting. There's humor in it. There's lightness. And there's truth. Dolly's never been the type to fake politeness or play it safe. She tells it like it is, but with sparkle. And what makes this whole story so brilliant is the full circle moment. This woman, who once represented temptation, threat, and all those complicated feelings, now shows up as just another person who's aged with time. It reminds us of something simple but powerful: time puts everything in perspective. What once felt like a huge emotional storm might one day become a funny memory. A great story to tell over dinner. But also, how cool is it that Dolly didn't let bitterness fester? She didn't turn that woman into a villain. She turned her into a song. A legend. An anthem. It's proof that even uncomfortable emotions can become art. It's a masterclass in emotional alchemy, turning pain into beauty. Let's really think about that for a minute. In a world where people are so quick to react out of anger, jealousy, or frustration, what Dolly did was almost revolutionary. Instead of storming into that bank and confronting the woman head-on, or going home and stewing in her feelings, she picked up a guitar. She didn't shout or scream or gossip. She created. She used her voice, not just to sing, but to express something deeply human, vulnerability. And that takes courage. Real courage. It's easy to lash out. It's much harder to reflect, process, and then make something meaningful out of it. Now imagine what it must have felt like in that moment. You're young, newly married, and you notice someone else is catching your partner's attention. That tight knot in your chest. That uneasy feeling. That quiet question in your head, is she prettier than me? Smarter? Funnier? Better somehow? Those thoughts can be toxic if left alone. For many people, they grow into resentment. They linger. They eat away at confidence. But Dolly, being the wise soul she is, used those emotions as fuel. And not just any fuel, creative fuel. She didn't see pain as a dead end. She saw it as a doorway. And walking through that doorway changed everything. What she created wasn't just a song about some woman trying to steal her man. Jolene became a cultural moment. A timeless story. A melody that struck a chord with millions of people across generations. Because everyone has a Jolene. Everyone has faced that moment of doubt, of fear, of not feeling good enough. The brilliance of Dolly's approach lies in how universal her experience became. She took something deeply personal and made it relatable to almost everyone. But let's also talk about the elegance of her decision. Turning someone into a villain is easy. Demonizing people who make us feel small or insecure is a knee-jerk reaction. It makes us feel better in the short term, right? But it doesn't bring peace. It doesn't allow healing. Dolly, instead of painting this woman as cruel or evil, portrayed her as powerful. Beautiful. Magnetic. She didn't lie. She didn't exaggerate. She acknowledged her fear and admiration in the same breath. It's one thing to admit jealousy. It's another to do it publicly, in a song, and still uplift the person you're afraid of. That's emotional maturity. That's self-awareness. That's grace. And it's something we can all learn from. We've all been in situations where someone made us feel small, whether intentionally or not. A coworker who seems to shine a little brighter. A friend who seems to effortlessly gather attention. A stranger who turns heads when they walk into a room. It can trigger something inside us, a sense of comparison, a fear of not being enough. But what if we used those moments to create instead of criticize? What if, like Dolly, we turned those insecurities into stories? Into art? Into growth? That's what makes Jolene so much more than a song. It's a lesson in transformation. A blueprint for how to deal with uncomfortable emotions in a healthy, creative, and lasting way. And think about the long-term effect of that decision. Because Dolly turned that fleeting emotion into a song, she created something that would live far beyond the moment. She didn't just process her own feelings, she helped millions of people process theirs. She offered a soundtrack to those silent battles of the heart. And she did it with melody, with poetry, with dignity. The way she handled that situation is the definition of emotional intelligence. She didn't react impulsively. She observed, she felt, and then she responded, with intention. That's something most of us are still learning how to do. And even though her approach was artistic, you don't have to be a musician to do the same. Writing in a journal, sketching, dancing, talking to someone, there are so many ways to take those emotions and turn them into something that serves you, not drains you. Now fast forward to that moment when she sees the real Jolene again. The story could have gone 100 different ways. It could have been cold. It could have been awkward. But instead, Dolly saw her, smiled, and gave us one of the best one-liners in music history. She didn't look half as good as I thought she would by now. It's funny, yes. But it also shows us something. Dolly had moved on. The sting of that moment was long gone. What was left was a story. A song. And maybe a little sass, too. That kind of confidence doesn't come from pretending nothing happened. It comes from feeling it all, facing it, and then choosing peace over bitterness. It's choosing to laugh instead of hold a grudge. To tell the story, not bury it. And when you do that, when you really allow yourself to feel, grow, and then let go, you gain this freedom. That's what Dolly had. And still has. A kind of lightness that comes from emotional honesty. The story of Jolene reminds us that behind every legendary song, there's a very real human moment. A choice. A turning point. Dolly could have let that experience harden her. She could have become closed off, suspicious, guarded. But she didn't. She stayed open. She stayed curious. And she stayed creative. And look where that led her. She took one uncomfortable, vulnerable, and all too human moment, and she turned it into something beautiful. That's the power of choosing creation over confrontation. That's what makes her an artist. And that's what makes her, well, Dolly. So next time you're caught in a whirlwind of emotion, when something or someone rattles your peace, remember this story. You have a choice. You can stew in it, or you can shape it. You can let it sit heavy on your heart, or you can set it free in a song, a page, a dance, a word. Just like she did. Because turning pain into beauty, that's not just art. That's healing. That's resilience. And Dolly Parton showed us exactly how it's done. Now let's talk about something else that's kind of beautiful about this whole thing. The name Jolene. Turns out, Dolly actually got it from a little girl who asked for her autograph one day. Dolly thought the name sounded musical and lovely. So she took it and gave it to this flirtatious redhead at the bank. That little detail just adds another layer, doesn't it? One name. Two stories. And somehow, it all fits together like magic. There are lessons here. Big ones. First of all, if you ever feel jealous, or insecure, or even just a little off balance because of someone else, maybe channel your inner Dolly. Write something. Draw something. Turn those messy feelings into something that helps you. You don't have to be a world-class songwriter. Just be honest. Let that emotion move through you, not stay in you. Second, let's talk about aging. It happens. To everyone. No matter how gorgeous or glamorous someone is in their youth, time catches up. And that's okay. Dolly's reaction to seeing Jolene years later. It wasn't cruel. It was just, real. She saw that time had done what it always does. But the real glow up. That was Dolly. Still fabulous. Still funny. Still fierce. Because personality, charm, wit, that stuff never wrinkles. And lastly, don't take life too seriously. If Dolly had gotten stuck in bitterness, or turned that woman into a long-term enemy, we might have never gotten one of the greatest songs of all time. Instead, she laughed. She shared. She sang. And the world got something unforgettable. So now I'm curious. Have you ever had a Jolene moment? You know, that one person from your past who once made your stomach turn, but now you just smile when you think of them? Or maybe even laugh a little. Those stories are worth telling too. They show how much we grow. How much we heal. And you know what else? Dolly's not done. Not by a long shot. Her life is filled with stories like these. Stories about strength, sass, humor, and heart. That's why people love her. That's why we can't get enough. She's lived a big, bold life, and she shares it with grace. So if you enjoyed hearing about this Jolene saga, there's a ton more where that came from. Maybe next time we'll talk about the time she shut down a talk show host with one sentence. Or how she turned a childhood growing up in a one-room cabin into a billion-dollar brand. Yep, Dolly's full of surprises. But before you go, tell me your story. Who was your Jolene? How did you handle it? And what would you say if you ran into them today? Oh, and if this video brought a smile to your face, or maybe helped you see something in a new light, go ahead and hit that like button. And if you want more stories like this, more little windows into the lives of legends, hit subscribe. We've got plenty of them. Thanks for hanging out. And remember, whether you're a Dolly or a Jolene, your story still matters.